Welcome to Linux Overdose. Today is April the 4th, 2016. This is episode 5, and I'll be calling this Linux Prep. And what this is going to be about is how I got started in Linux, and then how I prep myself to start using Linux and continue to use Linux. Well, back in middle of July of 2003 is the first time I even tried out Linux, and the first time was forever. I actually stopped using Windows the day I used Linux, and the first Linux distro that I tried out was simply Memphis, and its first release was made of '03, so it was very new when I tried it, which was in July of '03. They're currently at 11.990, and that was July 29th, 2013, and it hasn't been updated since. So I really wouldn't advise this to be your primary OS at this time until it gets updated, if it ever gets updated. This might be just the end of this distro, which is sad to see. Now, the default desktop environment was KDE, so it was a familiar form like Windows. So when I first boot up into simply Memphis KDE, I wasn't completely lost. I had a panel at the bottom, my clock to the right, menu to the left, so it had a familiar format. So I heard about Linux through reading, I guess, tech magazines, and everyone says Linux was bad. It's no good. It's not even worth even mess with. It's only for hobbies and all that. So I never got interested in Linux. But one day I just decided to burn the I guess I ran across it since simply Memphis was was only like 2 months old when I tried out. That's caught my attention, so I decided, all right, I'll go ahead and download the ISO and burn it onto a DVD, which I was familiar how to download an ISO and how to burn it on a disk as an image file, because I've done it with games and stuff I did for Windows. And plus, I build my own computers, so I actually installed Windows on my machine, so I was familiar how to install a operating system, which most Windows users never installed a operating system, including the one they're using now. So you're kind of lost at the beginning. So that's why I guess Linux ain't so popular, because a lot of people don't know how to do it from the get-go. And some of them do, but after they get it installed, they just look at it and mess with it for a few hours and then just quit and go right back to Windows. And some of those people call themselves Linux users. Well, you're not a user if you just play with it a few hours and go back to your Windows. You have to actually know Linux, how to operate its software and how to make it function for your daily basic needs. And so after I burn it, I never gave it a test drive. I just laid it on my desk. So middle of July of '03, I was using Windows XP, and I got a nasty virus. So nasty that an antivirus program couldn't get rid of it. So I just threw my hands up and said, all right, go ahead and reinstall Windows, which I've done many, many times. And so, I know how to do it. Well, when I put the Windows disk in the DVD player, about ready to close the tray, and I looked down and seen the Simply Memphis DVD or CD. It was CD at that time because it was a um, smaller image, and so I decided, well, since I'm going to install Windows again, I said, well, why not just try this Linux? So I went ahead and took the Windows disk out of the DVD tray, put my CD in, the Simply Memphis live version, close it, reboot, and there it was. I was in Simply Memphis live version, and I might have poked around just a little bit, but not much because I knew I was going to install it. I didn't know how long it was going to take, so I clicked on the install button, which is the icon that's usually on the desktop on most Linux distros. Clicked on it and went through the install procedures, just follow instructions. And I just said it, install the whole entire drive, just wipe out my virus Windows XP, and so when after I reboot, I had Linux on my machine, and that's all I had. So now I got this big heavy paperweight on my desk right now because I wasn't familiar with Linux, and I just forced myself to learn how this operating system works. And what I did, how I started out was I made a list of everything I did on my Windows, all my applications, and what was the purpose for these applications, and also list all the hardware like my joystick, my digital camera, my printer, my webcam, all the hardware that I had, my SD card reader, and any other hardware I had. I list that too. And of course, I didn't understand how to install Linux software. I didn't understand how I'm supposed to load all these drivers for all these extra pieces of hardware that I use on a daily basis or weekly basis or whatever. So I just got busy into Linux. Linux Mint forums. So I went to this site here, download it, and I went to their forums and just start asking questions. And little by little, I was learning. Because the first thing I had to do is learn how to install, and I found Synaptic Package Manager, and I just spend a lot of time in there because you just go in there, click, and read. So I just went here and put in my password, and this is all the software in the repository. So I just start searching for stuff. Of course, I was getting lost in here, so what helped me was a search engine too. And so I went to a search engine, which I think it was Yahoo at the time. Wasn't using Google, and I just put Linux media player or whatever, and I think VLC came up, which I was familiar with that. I did have some free software that was on my Windows. Um, like I had VLC. Of course, I had the browser Firefox. So I had a few free software, open source software on my Windows. So I was familiar with some of these programs. So and plus Open Office too. I even had that on my system because I didn't have a Windows Office because I didn't have the money to buy the extra software. So I was familiar with that too. So I installed all the software that was open source that I was familiar with onto my Linux because it was compatible with Linux. And then I got my joystick working because I downloaded a real simple game that required joystick. So I got that working real good. It was a USB Thrustmaster, Firestorm 2 or something like that. I still have that gamepad to this day. It's still in good shape and still works with my Linux. Plug and play. It's a great gamepad to have. And what I did with my digital camera is I just took the SD card out and put it in my SD card reader, and Linux was able to read that too. I had a quick webcam. I think I had to do something. No, I didn't have to do anything special with that other than download cheese, and I had my webcam working. The only thing couldn't get working was my printer, which was a Lexmark. And I found out that Linux had a list of for printers that was compatible with their system. And my model of Lexmark was listed as a brick, meaning there is no drivers for this all-in-one printer I had. But everything else worked. All my other hardware that I had, it just worked. Only thing didn't work was my printer. So I went through their printer list that was compatible, and I noticed most of them were HP printers. I said, well, then I just go out tomorrow, the next day, and I bought me a brand new HP printer. And what I did, I plugged it in and it worked. I mean, I plugged it in and it just magically worked. So, and what I did with my Lexmark, I just put it up for sale and pretty much got all my money back. All except I think $20 or something. I paid like $20 extra for my printer. I got most of that back through selling the other printer because it was a nice printer. It still worked, and it just worked for Windows and not for Linux. And from that day forward, I made sure I bought compatible hardware since my operating system at that time and still is Linux. So I get online and just make sure the printers are compatible. I always bought HP, but and it was inkjets. I decided to go laser this time, and I was going to buy HP laser, but I found a good sale. It was Samsung laser printer, and it was a lot cheaper. And I went on their website, and they had a driver for Linux. It was like a script to run. So I bought that. I saved almost $50-$60. The reason I got laser printer because inkjet ink just dries up. I don't use my printer enough where the ink dries up too quick. Bought a laser where I don't have to replace the ink as often. So that's the reason I went to laser. And I plugged it in downloaded the script, ran the script, and it worked. Now, since I built this new system, which is new, I haven't used my printer yet on this. So what I'm going to do here in the next episode or whatever, I'll show you how to install a printer on your system. And especially if you have the same model of this Samsung, or you decided to buy one, and I show you how to install it. It was very simple. It was the first time I ran well, it wasn't the first time I ran a script like that, but it was the first time I ran a script for a printer. And like I said, it worked. So soon I ran it and pressed test. It just worked. So so that's how I got started in Linux. I just installed and got lucky. Everything worked. It didn't take me long to nosy around the KDE desktop that I had, and found the control panel, and of course I was lost of how the file system was for Linux compared to Windows, how to check the space you was using on your hard drive. It just was it was, you know, simple stuff that you can do in Windows, and it's a little harder first time you're doing a different using a different system in a different way, different know-how and all that. But I got through all that. I mean, now it's I prefer Linux over Windows. I've been with Linux longer than I have been with Windows. So I'm going on almost 13 years with Linux. And Windows, I was from, I don't know, from 95, because I messed with 95. My own computer though was in 98. And then I stopped using since Windows XP in 03. So that's how I got started in Linux, and I'm glad I did. Now to prep your Linux is, I think how I got lucky was I had a Intel processor and a NVIDIA graphic card. I think I had that combination from day one, and to this day I still use an Intel and NVIDIA hardware, and had no problems installing, running Linux. It's always been stable because I use stable Linux distros only. And there's a few things I do that other people don't. Is people do boot or something like that, and what I do, I install on the hard drive. I do not encrypt at all, you know, from the beginning, or crypt any of my software or folders or anything, because there's no one here. I'm not hooked up to any other system or nothing. So when I boot up my computer, I don't have to log in. It's auto log in, so I don't have to do that at the very beginning. So when I install Linux, I'll just let it do its thing. I just put it in, say whole hard drive, and just let it take off. I don't pre-format my hard drive. I do not partition my hard drive. I stick it in, run it, reboot. There's my Linux. So and that's what I do all the time. Then I update it, get my codecs if it ain't there already, and then just get it the way I want it. And I just learn how to do all that. Like I said, I Google stuff here, because what I did is say I wanted photo editor. I just put photo and just see what pops up here. which in place you don't know what none of this stuff is. Of course, you can click on it, and right here it tells you what it is. You get a screenshot. So there's a screenshot of it. If you want to go to the home page, you just go here, copy, go to your browser, paste and go. And then right here I can read about it and then install it. This was already pre-installed. I did not install Cheese. I do have a webcam, it's just not hooked up, but soon it hooks up. I don't have to worry about downloading Cheese because right here is Cheese. And then Darktable was also pre-installed, so I'm getting the hang of that. And that's what I do. And GIMP, it was pre-installed, which I install this all the time. If it ain't installed, I do like GIMP. I don't know why people hate it, but I do like it. So I haven't did the plugin registries or nothing, so I'll be doing that. So what you do is click here, and it tells you what it's going to do. And like I said, I just mess in here a lot when I first been in here. And this is how you do. You just hit the screen. You get a screenshot of the software. Click, just copy. This is the G thumb. Just go to your browser. And then you're here, and then you just read about it and learn the software. I spend many hours in a Synaptic package manager. And right here I did have an HP printer, so I still got HP printer drivers on here. So if I had my printer still, I just plug it in, and it just works. This is the plug-in that's mostly default on most Linux distros, but if not, this is what you need: HP LIP to install. If you got an HP printer, most of the time that is what you need to work. And you can see most of this, when I put photo as a keyword, most of this is photo related. And then if I want to do games, it might not be, the best. And then most of these are the games. You can see I don't got none of these installed. I do like this game, which is Solitaire and other games. And what you do, you just, like you said, I just click mark, press apply again, and then it's installed, and I'll have it. That's how easily it is to install software on here. And you do the same to remove it. So I'm in here mostly than the store. I don't like the store very much. I prefer in here, even though it's kind of bland, but I'm so used to it. Right here's the store, which is more, I guess, organized. See, I put photo here. You probably get better, more details of photo programs. And none of this don't look like it's installed, because over here I think it'd be green or something. So it's just showing me what hasn't been installed yet instead of what's been installed. I click here, and this will show me what is installed, like photos, so graphics. So all this here is installed. So Linux is very simple. You can see I can get through it pretty quick. And so when I first installed Linux, I just made a list, learn all these applications, make sure all my hardware worked. I didn't mess with my Windows games. I did have Windows games. I just poked around and started playing Linux games. And I did like some of the Linux games. Now I was with Linux for a year and a half before I even tried out Wine. I just at that time I got bored. I pretty much knew a lot about Linux, and I was reading about Wine. It just got um, updated and stuff. I said, all right, let's go ahead and try Wine. And I looked for one of my games, one of my favorite games that I love to play on Windows was this game, Car Carmagno 2 Carpopolis Now. I played this and I love this game. So so I went ahead and installed Wine. I believe Wine Tricks also. I put the DVD in, close it, and try to install this program. And it fell. It wasn't. It didn't work the very first time. I had to mess with other things about Wine, and also had to download a mini player um, for the movie to work, because a movie plays in front of this game for it to get to work. And I just kept messing with it. Actually took me 3 days, not from start to finish, but on my third day, I just messed with it a little bit, quit, walked away, read about more about Wine, see what I could do, went to forums, did this, did that, kept messing with it, and then on my third day, I was successful. I actually had it running just as fast, just as quick, frame rate, everything was just working. On my third day messing with this game. Remember, it's the first time I messed with Wine, and I didn't know how to mess with it. And I just kept going, and actually got this game working 100% correct, just like it was installed on Windows. So, which was great. So I just sat down and I played this, I think, all the way to the end before I even messed with installing, try another Windows game, since it took me 3 days to install this. The second game was Revolt, which was a remote control car, which I love too. This was another Windows game that I purchased and bought when I had Windows XP, and I went ahead and stuck this in and clicked, and I believe, if I ain't mistaken, it worked the first time. I think I had to do something, but it was only on my first or second try, and I had this running 100%, just like it was on Windows. And I had a lot of Windows games, and I think the third one I tried was the Microsoft Pinball Arcade, and it fell miserably. It just did not work. And then Leadfoot Off-Road Stadium, I tried that. I failed with that one also. And then I think I tried Desperado, which is a pretty good cowboy game, and I succeed on that one. And I just kept going through my library, fail, succeed, and I just made a stack of the ones that didn't work. And then every year I kept trying them, because new update for Wine. Then Play on Linux came along, and I started messing with that. And then sooner or later I got my library lower and lower and lower, the non-working ones working in Linux. And finally, the last game, which was Microsoft, which is funny because it was titled Microsoft Arcade Pinball. It took me 6 years. I had to wait six versions of Wine, or how many times they updated within that 6 year period, till I got that last game to work. and wine. So now I got my, of course, that was an old library, very old library of Windows games, and it took me 6 years from the day I started messing with wine and to get my complete library of Windows games to work. But I got them all working. Now, some people are downloading or installing Linux because they think these current games of Windows will work in Linux, and 9 out of 10 you're going to fail. And wine just can't keep up that quick. And I'm sure there's some old games that still not successful under wine. I'm not sure on that. But don't try Linux and wine in these newer games. I mean, you can try, but accept failure. And then 5 years, 6 years from that point, you might be able to get that game to work. If you're a Windows game user, you need to stick with Windows. I mean, that's just a gimme there. But it doesn't mean you don't have to not use or even try Linux. You can do boot. You can install another hard drive, plug in a USB flash drive, and install it on that way, or virtual machine, which I have on here with Linux Mint Mate, and which you've seen in one of those episodes. Alright, I think that's enough for the prep and my little story about Linux. So I'll go ahead and stop this, and next one I'll start either with my printer or talk about something else, or go continue with that top 10 Linux distros beginning to end, which the next one is Debian. So that'll be coming up here soon, and I guess I'll talk to you guys later.